Yet again, the critics have gone overboard with their criticism. This is terrible, this is a mess, this is absolute shit and bollocks. And Terminator Genisys, just like with Transformers 4, isn't that bad. I think the critics were holding on so tightly to the glorious Terminator 2 that they just refused to let go of that movie until something better comes along in the franchise. Genisys is by no means better than Terminator 2. It tries to be a different movie while still referring to the movies it's trying to not be like. What a paradox. I haven't seen Terminators 1 and 2 for quite some time now, so I more or less saw this movie as standalone, yet I still picked up on the references to previous movies. But sadly, the references are the only reasons to watch this. This movie is not trying to be the next Terminator 2. I'm not even sure it's possible to make a Terminator movie at the level of Judgment Day again. That was a movie that understood how to entertain an audience a lot with as little resources as possible. I mean, the most entertaining and memorable parts of that movie were the irony of the kid teaching the adult-looking cyborg, and the horror movie-like surprises. This movie relies more on action, weapons, and time travel. It tries to be a popcorn action movie, which just requires you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the roller coaster. In that respect, it succeeds. All the scenes fit together quite well, and the way the Kyle Reese character and the Terminator character don't get along adds a little spice to all the shallowness. And when people say that Arnold was the best thing in this movie, they are not kidding. He was so badass, yet so likeable, and despite him being a robot, the script and direction made it so that we as the audience understand his every robotic emotion. Now, why couldn't that much effort go into the dialogue and the substance? First of all, this whole movie is a 2-hour version of the theatrical trailer. Every scene in this movie was featured in that trailer. Why did they do that? Now, if people want to watch this movie for free, they can just watch the very spoiler-heavy trailer. What a cop-out from the marketing department, because now I feel like there was even less of a point in watching this. I've seen some critics complain that this movie is forgettable, and while I don't personally think it's totally forgettable, there's not that much worth remembering, and it all comes down to the shockingly severe lack of irony. Irony is what made Terminator 2, and there was so much potential to include it here. You know from the trailer that a child, Sarah Connor, meets the Terminator and they form a bond. We never see that bond form. We unfortunately never see Sarah Connor teach the Terminator how to be human in the first place. That would have been an awesome first act. And most of the dialogue is expositional in a slightly annoying way. The narrator talks about things we already know. The characters talk about things we already know. We never once get any dialogue talking about how the characters feel psychologically. And let's be honest here. Let's be honest. There must be a wealth of intelligent, psychological thoughts going through these characters' heads. They're all involved in time travel, lethal technology, family. But nope, the most we get is, the Terminator loves you. Wow, how deep and interesting. But now let's talk about the characters. Emilia Clarke was okay. She has enough presence to carry the role of Sarah Connor. Jai Courtney was okay as Kyle Reese, even though his eyebrows hardly ever moved to convey any emotion. I appreciate that he was cast, most likely because he himself looks like a young Terminator. Does he and Emilia Clarke have romantic chemistry? Very little. They're more like brother and sister. And there was even a moment where I thought the time travel element was messed up to the point where those two actually became related. But it didn't go down that route of originality, which is a shame actually. Jason Clarke was okay as John Connor. I mean, Clarke is a leading man guy, but he's too much of a nice person to play a badass. He's more of a friendly, approachable type, and I would have preferred someone more athletic, like Gerard Butler or Clive Owen, to portray a resistance leader. There's a couple of cameos that you already know of. J.K. Simmons, wasted. Matt Smith, kind of wasted. And now for what the audience of today are seemingly the most interested in. The special effects. While I think the action itself was well shot and I could clearly see what the hell was happening, for some reason, a lot of the CGI was filmed with close-ups. Close-ups! What? Surely filmmakers by now know that no matter how good special effects are, you should always try to avoid filming them with close-ups so that the CGI is more or less invisible. The practical effects, such as the bus flipping in the trailer and the young Arnie, were okay, but I can't help feeling they could have been a bit more practical with the effects. A practical explosion is far more effective than a CGI explosion. And once more, an expensive explosion is nothing compared to watching a young John Connor teach the Terminator swear words like in Judgment Day. Finally, and this is the very reason I didn't bother watching Terminator Salvation, because of this one little clip that I saw, where the cyborgs are so easy to kill. I know it's explained why they're so easy to kill this time around, but still, it makes all the blood, sweat, and tears of the first two movies redundant. The Terminator in Terminator 1 that wiped out a whole police station, it could have been stopped so easily. That liquid metal Terminator in Judgment Day that was destroyed by luck, it could have been stopped so easily. Do not watch Genisys if you're a fan of the first two Terminator movies. Hell, I'm surprised the female Terminator from Rise of the Machines didn't show up. As a standalone movie, it fails to consider what the audience is experiencing. I don't mind popcorn action movies with okay script writing, but when it forgets the audience and treats them like they don't exist, say by having no intelligence and no beautiful cinematography, then the audience forgets the movie. The problems lie in the execution. They could have made an amazingly fun movie with this new direction for the franchise, but they chose to make it into a series of mostly expositional dialogue and mostly CGI heavy action. No irony, no character development, no surprises. This just goes to show how afraid Hollywood is of intelligence. Audiences have brains. 2 stars out of 5.